There's Obi. I'm Scott. Today we're at a part of Pike's Peak State Park near in the Horn Hollow Loop Trail, which is right there, and looking at some ancient native burial or ceremonial mounds. So, and I'm going to explain this a little bit more. So there's a mound here, there's a mound right there. You can sort of see it. They've actually worked to clear some of them a little bit more in recent times. These have been around basically since approximately, I guess, I don't know the exact date of these mounds in Pike's Peak, but they were building mounds approximately 3,500 years ago, actually up to 5,000 years ago. And then that mound building culture ended around the 1700s. So that's what they believe. Actually, maybe even the 1600s. They're not really certain on that. But these mounds were constructed by peoples who lived before what are today known as the modern tribes. So they went into what they call the Hopewell time. And there are Hopewell Nation tribes still. But if you'll notice, they're built along this ridge that overlooks the Mississippi River, which is down there. You can hear the train down there anyway. One of the more phenomenal things about these mounds that I've ever learned, and part of it was from working as a summer ranger at Effigy Mountains, is that down there in the Mississippi there are clays, and some of the clay has iron in it. There's some sandstone that has iron in it, so the sand is red. And there's a red ochre, which is kind of a reddish clay. Some of those materials are found up here. So these bluffs here are a little bit over 400 feet high, incredibly steep in this area. So just imagine carrying that material from way down at the edge of the Mississippi, including mussel shells, etc., and up over that bank to pile them here. So most of these mounds, it's a complete interpretation, which means anybody that speaks about them now is interpreting the past, because there is no written record, and actually most of the modern tribes don't even have an oral history that's left anymore, since white people came to the United States and took most of their history away by genocide, basically, and by destroying their cultures. So along this bluff here, it goes all the way to the overlook, which is about 2 miles along the bluff that way. Are mounds scattered about, and those mounds, some of them actually contained burials, so the remains of people who lived long ago, and who obviously were, I guess it's also assumed that they were important enough for them to be buried up here at the very top of these hills in these mounds, which would have taken a great deal of work to construct. Another interesting fact about the mounds, quick, that I do know from archaeology that took place at Effigy Mounds, which is about 8 miles north or upriver from here. So that way. Some of those mounds were excavated, and I know that they found in some of them multiple burials. In some of them they found only one, and in some of them they found 0. But all of the archaeology that was done in those mounds, or the digging in those mounds, was ended by 1971 because of the Native American Repatriation Act that was mostly brought about by the American Indian movement which was a pretty big deal for them as a people, because before that, basically, their ancestors were just being dug up for, white men's pleasure or white men's science. And, think about that for your ancestors, that would be kind of strange. But one more quick fact. Effigy mounds, for instance, there were 3 styles of burial that they know of, and one of them they called the bundle burial. So they actually took the bones of the person, and they believe maybe left them to dry in a tree or something if it were not springtime yet and they couldn't dig. And then they bundled up the bones and put them into a burial site. There was what was called an extended burial, so the body was extended, and there's a flexed burial, which was like a fetal position, so the body was curled up. So they buried people in the mounds in those 3 different ways, and none of these particular mounds here are in an effigy, which means in the shape of an animal. These are all conical mounds, at least that's what we call them now. But within Pike's Peak there are several effigy mounds, which are in the shape of a variety of animals, which again is an interpretation today. Some of them they call bears, some they call birds, or we call them that. So again, there's quite the mystery behind these. They were also dug down into the top of the topsoil several feet, and then flattened out. The earth was flattened out, and then they put red ochre or sand, or sometimes shells from the mussels that they took from the Mississippi River, and put that at the bottom, and then built up from there. So all kinds of other items were found in them as well, but pretty amazing feats. If you've ever had the chance or get the chance to go to Cahokia Mound, which is down by St. Louis, that's a beautiful site, as is Oztalon, which is over by Milwaukee, and the Franks Hill, which I was at a few days ago and spoke about. Some amazing places along with Effigy Mounds, and Effigy Mound Snai McGill unit, which is down just south of here. There's over 100 mounds there, so some phenomenal native peoples sites here of what they did long before Europeans ever arrived. So there you be. I hope you can get out, appreciate the outside world, and maybe some of what other cultures and other people have done long before we got here, and long before we had gasoline engines, electricity, machines, all these things that we call conveniences today that sometimes we maybe forget to take full appreciation of. Although I think many of the citizens who live in Cedar Rapids, Iowa currently, or that area, are very happy to have, if they have them, and are still waiting for them if they don't have them. So spend a few days there cutting trees and bringing some things to those people. And they have a great deal of need yet. So all those things have been the result of the flooding that has occurred here and there, and then this huge storm, have been made worse by climate change, and that's simply a scientific fact. So again, I'm sorry to ramble on, but take care. Hope you have safe times. I hope you stay safe from the coronavirus and are still able to get outside. Stay socially distant, but again, try not to stay be socially isolated, and take care. We'll talk to you again soon. One more look at the noble beast Obi. Bye for now.